This holiday season, step into the world of Scrooge, A Christmas Carol, the award-winning audio drama podcast from Hope Media Group and Compassion International. Returning for its 2024 season, this classic tale of redemption and forgiveness is brought to life like never before. Whether you're gathered with family or listening solo, Scrooge is the perfect way to embrace the true meaning of Christmas. Feel the power of the season's spirit with a story of transformation and hope. Catch Scrooge, A Christmas Carol, wherever you listen to podcasts or tune in on ScroogePodcast.com. This year, let the story move you and remind you of the joy of forgiveness and the magic of Christmas.
Your body is an amazing machine. It turns food into energy, heals wounds, supports your consciousness, and so much more. But it needs the right fuel to function at its best. Organifi is a line of organic superfood blends that offer plant-based nutrition with high-quality ingredients and less than 3 grams of sugar. This fall, you will want to try Organifi Gold. This delicious superfood tea helps you sleep and recover so you can wake up feeling refreshed and energized. It supports rest and relaxation, a healthy immune response, and a better response to stress. And don't forget about Organifi's other products, including their red juice, which is still my favorite, a delicious superfood punch that increases energy without the caffeine. You can reach for it in the afternoon instead of that sugary snack. You can experience Organifi's high-quality superfoods for less than $3 a day. Go to www.organifi.com/bestofyou and use code bestofyou for 20% off your order. That's ORGANIFI.com/bestofyou and use code bestofyou for 20% off any item. Hey everyone, I'm Dr. Allison, and I'm so glad you're here to discover what brings out the best of you. This podcast is all about breaking free from painful patterns, mending the past, and discovering our true selves in God. I can't wait to get started as we learn together how to become the best version of who we are with God's help. Hey everyone, and welcome back to this week's episode of the Best of You podcast. I'm so glad you're here this week as we dive into a brand new topic. It's a topic we've never covered before on the podcast, but it's one that whenever I survey you or ask you what topics you'd like me to cover, this one today comes up so often in one of two ways. The first way is just simply taking care of aging parents. But then the second way it comes up is, how do I care for emotionally immature parents who neglected me, who weren't there for me when I was young, and now I have to take care of them? This topic of caring for our own parents as they age also often comes up in the context of, meanwhile, I'm still raising my own kids. I'm still trying to figure out how to launch my own kids, let alone heal myself, let alone now care for my own parents. Now, there's a term for this. The term is sandwich generation. This refers to adults who are simultaneously caring for their aging parents while supporting their own children. This could include young children, teenage children, or even young adult children. The point is, you're in a dual caregiving role. You're sandwiched between two different generations who have a lot of needs. And these needs are very different. The needs of your aging parents or your in-laws are very different from the needs of your children who you're trying to launch. And so being a part of this sandwich generation presents a lot of really unique stressors as you can feel stuck between all the needs around you. Some of you listening are still raising young kids. Maybe you're managing the morning chaos of packing lunches for your 6-year-old or helping your 9-year-old finish a last-minute school project. There's a lot of hands-on needs. Meanwhile, you're also beginning to coordinate doctor's appointments, maybe for your mom or for your dad. Maybe they're starting to show signs of memory loss, or they have a condition that's developing and they might need your attention or your support, or they might need help with groceries or even bills or getting healthcare insurance figured out. Some of you listening might be launching young adult children. Maybe you've got a child who's off at college, and while they're no longer under your roof, you're still very well aware that they're dealing with a lot of anxiety or a lot of social stressors or even stressors at school, and you're still very involved. They still take up a lot of your mental capacity. Your parenting work is certainly not over once our kids go off to college. Maybe you even have kids who are out of college, who are working their first jobs, who are maybe getting engaged, maybe getting married, maybe starting to have children of their own. Again, your work as a parent is still not finished. In fact, some of these major life decisions that our young adult children are making require even more of our mental bandwidth and our emotional support, as they really need our help guiding them through some really high stakes decisions. All the while, on the other side of it, you might have a parent or an in-law who's lost a spouse, and so they're dealing with a lot of new norms in their life. Maybe they're more lonely. There might be moves. There might be new financial issues that emerge as your parents age. Some of you maybe don't have kids, and yet you're still carrying the stress of figuring out, how am I going to care for my parents? I finally maybe just got the life that I've wanted to have, and now I have to figure out how to take on their needs. So no matter what your situation is as you're listening, this sandwich generation, where you're looking at needs, both of the next generation coming up behind you and the older generation, the one ahead of you, it stirs up a lot of complicated emotions. And so today, what I want to do in our conversation is I want to follow the framework that I lay out in my book, I Shouldn't Feel This Way, this framework for navigating complicated emotions. Number one, we're going to name what's hard. Naming what's really happening both inside of ourselves, the emotions that we're feeling, in addition to the realities of the new stressors in our lives, can really help validate the reality of what you're experiencing. As interpersonal neurobiologist Dr. Dan Siegel says, when you name something, you can tame it. It literally stops the firing of the emotional circuitry in your brain, and it helps you tap into the ordering part of your brain, right? So you've named it. You can see it. This is what's happening. Now I know what it is. And it allows that prefrontal cortex, that part of your brain that can start making meaning, that can start creating order, to come online. And you start to bring order out of chaos. So we're going to do some naming work. Then we're going to do some framing work. And in particular, I want to help you create a holy reframe, a way to reframe the demands and stressors and complexities of what it means to be in these caretaking roles. And then lastly, I'm going to give you 3 strategies so you can brave a path through honoring your own needs, where you can love and honor others without losing yourself. Bottom line is that navigating the sandwich generation, where you're caring for your aging parents while supporting your own children, this is a complex and emotional journey, but it's also an opportunity. It's an opportunity to create healthier patterns for yourself and for your own family. I'm going to walk you through how to turn this really challenging season into an opportunity to go even deeper into this work of figuring out how to honor your own needs while providing meaningful care for others, all without losing yourself. Number one, we're going to start by naming what's hard. So first of all, let's just talk about some of the unique challenges and stressors and emotions that being part of this sandwich generation can stir up inside of us. The first one is guilt. Often when we struggle with too many caretaking responsibilities, we start to beat ourselves up. Guilt can get really loud. You might start to notice messages like, "What's wrong with me? Why can't I just get it together? Why is this so hard when it doesn't seem like it's hard for anyone else? I'm just not organized enough. I'm just not giving enough. I'm too selfish." Whatever the thing is, often when we have too many caretaking responsibilities, it can often kick up a lot of guilt. And so often guilt, and I say this a lot, but I'm going to say it again, the presence of guilt does not always mean you've done something wrong. It might mean you're doing something brave, something uncomfortable, something hard. Guilt is an emotion. It is not necessarily a direct message from God. And when we're overwhelmed and we have too much on our plate, and when there are more needs than would be humanly possible for us to meet, guilt often steps in like an old, clingy friend. And the truth is, guilt is often masking other, more vulnerable emotions. Guilt is so closely tied to grief. It's so closely tied to fear. It's so closely tied to helplessness. So often when what we're actually feeling is overwhelmed, helpless, this is just so hard, right? We don't know how to face those more vulnerable feelings. And so sometimes it's just easier for a part of us to constantly berate and guilt trip ourselves. It can feel easier in some ways to just beat ourselves up as if we could be doing better than we are, than to face the reality of those more vulnerable emotions, which is this is hard. This is painful. I'm struggling. I'm scared. This is lonely. So often, those more vulnerable emotions are what is hiding underneath the constant guilt, especially when we're overwhelmed. Secondly, you may notice more anxiety, just a constant feeling of being dissettled, chaotic, not able to really find that calm, clear place inside, that deep breath where you can really exhale, at least at some point during your day. Maybe you notice that you have a hard time going to sleep at night, or your thoughts are racing. You're finding it hard to wind down and just rest or relax or log off for a little bit. There's just too much in your mind. And so oftentimes when you have a lot of these caretaking responsibilities, you'll see an uptick in some of that anxiety. You might just notice more stress in your body. Maybe you feel more agitated, like you're more inclined to go into that fight-flight response. And there's good reason for that stress. The American Psychological Association notes that especially women who are part of the sandwich generation, particularly those who are aged 35 to 54, report significantly higher stress levels than any other age group. The stress might be about managing time, just literally, how do I get everything done that I need to get done today? It might just be the fatigue of managing complicated medical appointments, phone calls, attending school events for children, driving needs of children, and also sometimes of aging parents. You might be worried about how to keep your own job while you're taking care of all the people who need you in your life. Oftentimes, there's a financial strain, as caregivers often face increased expenses related to healthcare and their own kids' education, and all of this can impact your own financial stability and your own retirement planning. So there's just a lot of added stressors that can start to ratchet up the cortisol, where you're having a harder time finding rest, finding calm, finding those moments of deep exhale. And this can creep up on you where it doesn't happen overnight, but suddenly, and this gets to our last thing that you might notice, is you might start numbing. You might start noticing that you've resorted to old patterns from the past, maybe even patterns that you thought you'd kicked, patterns that you thought were well behind you, but suddenly maybe you notice yourself reaching for that extra glass of wine, or reaching for the extra bag of cookies, or binge watching Netflix more than you have been for a long time, or just trying to drown out your own feelings in whatever way that you can. And again, you might notice those behaviors, and then that leads you right back up to the guilt. You might feel guilty. What's wrong with me? Why can't I get it together? But the reality is the overwhelm that you're facing is real. It's not your fault. Something's happened that is hard. There's a lot on your plate. There are a lot of demands on your time. Of course, you're overwhelmed. Of course, you're trying to find quick ways to soothe yourself late at night. Of course, you cannot bear to make one more phone call to a doctor on your to-do list. Of course, you're getting short-fused with your own kids or with your own parents. This is normal when we're overwhelmed, and beating yourself up and shaming yourself doesn't help. Because if there's nothing else you take away today from this episode, it's that you are not alone. There are millions of other women in particular who are feeling the same way that you feel. And I wish we could all just get together and sit around a table for a minute and share what's hard about caring for other people, the fatigue that we feel, the frustration, and even sometimes the grief. It can feel like time is passing us by, and it can feel like we're on a hamster wheel instead of fully able to enjoy these seasons of our lives. If we were gathered together, we would probably cry out so many of our frustrations. And then I know without a doubt what we would do. We would get busy figuring out how to help each other find a better way through. And so since we can't all get together, I want to spend the next portion of this episode just talking you through some practical strategies or ways that you can begin to find some peace out of all these crazy pieces of your life, to find some calm out of all the chaos. This holiday season, I want to give a gift that's as special and unique as the relationships I share with my loved ones. That's why I'm giving the gift of Storyworth. Here's how it works. Each week, Storyworth emails your loved one a thought-provoking question, and you get to help pick the questions. So you might pick questions like, what's the bravest thing you've ever done? Or how did you used to get to school every day? Your loved one simply responds to the email with their story. It can be long or short, as much as they want to share. Throughout the year, you'll receive their stories in real time, and at the end of the year, Storyworth compiles everything, along with photos, into a gorgeous hardcover book. We gave my mom the gift of Storyworth a couple years ago, and I love the book that we got. We cherish the stories and memories that it contains. No wonder Storyworth has more than 35,000 five-star reviews and has preserved millions of stories over the past decade. With Storyworth, I'm giving those I love most a thoughtful, personal gift from the heart and preserving their memories and stories for years to come. Go to storyworth.com/bestofyou and save $10 on your first purchase. That's storyworth.com/bestofyou to save $10 on your first purchase. I have been searching for years for a skincare product that actually works to combat aging and wrinkles while restoring a youthful look to my skin. And over the years, I've tried dozens of different products and nothing has delivered the results I wanted or made me feel like I could trust the quality. But that all changed when I discovered Purity Woods. Purity Woods' mission is to provide us with the cleanest and most effective healthy aging products on the market. Their age-defying Dream Cream is a total game changer. It's USDA certified organic, non-GMO, and free of anything artificial. There's no toxic preservatives, synthetic additives, pesticides, or parabens. And best of all, it's cruelty-free. That means it's never tested on animals. The star ingredient in their formula is maple leaf extract. It's packed with antioxidants and anti-inflammatory properties that help soothe, plump, and brighten your skin. I love how it feels on my skin. It provides incredible moisture without causing any unwanted breakouts. Turn back time on the appearance of your skin with Purity Woods' age-defying Dream Cream. Purity Woods is currently offering 17% off site-wide, but we have an additional 10% discount for our listeners for a total savings of 27%. Go to puritywoods.com/bestofyou or enter code bestofyou at checkout for an additional 10% off your first order. That's PURITYWOODS.com and enter code bestofyou for a total of 27% off your first order.
When your gut feels off, your whole day can feel off. Activia probiotic yogurts and dailies are a quick, easy, and tasty way to up your gut health game every day. They're deliciously smooth and creamy and packed with billions of live and active probiotics. Your gut is where it all begins, so start with Activia. Enjoying Activia twice a day for 2 weeks as part of a balanced diet and healthy lifestyle can help reduce the frequency of minor digestive discomfort.
I want to give you what I call a holy reframe. And a holy reframe, I talk about in I Shouldn't Feel This Way. I walk you through how to create them, but it's a way of examining all the complexity of what's hard and creating a bigger, more robust understanding of the situation. And what I think is sometimes the most powerful way to reframe a hard situation is this reality that two things can be true. This is incredibly hard, and there's an invitation here for me, for my own healing and growth. I'm frustrated with all the people who need of me, and I want to do right by them. I need more space for myself, and I want to show up for the people I love. As you begin to honor the both and, right? The both and, you create a bigger frame. You create more spaciousness inside your soul. I'm frustrated and I'm committed. I'm scared I don't have what it takes, and I have confidence I can get through this. I'm mad at myself and I see how hard I'm working. And you slow yourself down and you start to make room for all of what's true about your situation. So often when we're dealing with so many legitimate needs all around us, it really becomes a crucible. And if you think about that word crucible and what it means, I like to think of it in terms of pottery. For those of you who are into pottery, you'll know what I mean. But when you create out of clay a carefully shaped item, maybe you create a beautiful mug, right? And it looks really cool and you've gotten it exactly how you want. The next thing you do is you take that creation and you put it in what's called a kiln. And that kiln exposes that object you've created to extreme heat. And that heat transforms the clay into something really strong and durable. And now when that mug comes out of the kiln and it's survived all that heat and that extreme pressure, it actually becomes more resilient, more durable. It's ready for everyday use. You can use it every single day and it becomes something really precious. And if you never put that mug that you created in the kiln, it would stay really fragile and it would just easily crumble. It wouldn't have a lot of use to yourself or to other people. And so similarly, a crucible in our lives represents a challenging situation, like being the caregiver for a lot of different people. And when you're in that situation, there's pressure applied, right? You can feel pressure from everybody around you. But if you're smart about how you walk through that crucible, it can ultimately strengthen you and shape you into an even more vibrant, more resilient, more refined version of yourself. When you're in this sandwich generation, you're under a lot of emotional, relational, and logistical pressure. And that can start to feel like it's going to break you. But when you really honor that process and you do some of the things we're going to talk about today, it can help you dig even deeper into personal growth, taking even better care of yourself, having even stronger boundaries with other people, learning to heal parts of you that are going to come up to the surface as a result of the pressure. And so this process can be used for good. Now, I do not say that to say that it's easy. I do not want to minimize what you're going through. And I want to encourage you that as you name what's hard and you frame your reality and you apply some of the steps we're going to talk about today, you can come through this season, this fire, this crucible, even stronger than you were before. Here are 3 primary strategies I want you to think about as you imagine yourself in this crucible, in this high pressure situation that you're in. I'm going to give you 3 words to keep it simple because you got a lot on your plate. I'm going to give you 3 words to orient yourself on as you think about how to allow this challenging season to do its work for good inside of you. The first one, number 1, reparenting. Crucibles are an opportunity for your own healing. It may not feel that way. I'm going to show you how that's true. Number 2, boundaries. A crucible is an amazing opportunity to take inventory of your own boundary lines and get crystal clear about them. You do not have the margin during this season to take on anything that is not yours to take on. And so this is your chance. If you've ever wanted to really work on your boundaries, this is the time to do it. And then number 3, surrender. And what I mean by that term surrender is it's the spiritual antidote to guilt. And so you're going to work on reparenting, you're going to work on your boundaries, and then you're going to let it all go in surrender. And that's how you ultimately beat the guilt. So number 1, what do I mean by reparenting? Well, the work of caregiving for others, whether it's our kids or our own parents, often is a seedbed for reactivating our own wounds. Often when we're caring for our own children, there are really beautiful opportunities to do things differently, right? We can do for our own kids the things that were never done for us. And that can be really life-giving as a parent, to reparent the parts of you through providing for your own kids the things that you yearned to have for yourself. But here's the thing, as you also step into caring for your own parents as they age, it is another opportunity for you to reparent the parts of you. Often as our parents age, their old habits, their old patterns get magnified. So if you had a parent who likes to guilt trip you or criticize you or constantly give you advice, those patterns are going to intensify. Or if you have a parent who is in avoidance, who doesn't like to deal directly with their physical ailments, or who doesn't like to deal directly with conflict, or who is in denial about their own emotions, that is also going to intensify as they age. Those patterns don't tend to go away. They tend to intensify as people age. And so you're going to be right back in that proverbial soup in which you were cooked, where mom is criticizing you or dad is in complete denial about his needs. You're going to feel frustrated. You're going to feel annoyed. You're going to notice old parts of you come to the surface that you may not have seen for a long time. You might start noticing that fawn response where you start trying to please them in order to avoid their criticism, in order to avoid their irritation. And parts of you are going to be like, what is wrong with me? I am an adult. Why am I defaulting to this old childlike behavior with my parent? It's so normal. Please hear me say, but it is an opportunity for even deeper healing. If you notice that, right? That irritation, that agitation, maybe you're going into fight mode more. Maybe you notice yourself going into that people-pleasing mode more. You just want to shut it out, even though other parts of you, like, they actually need me. I actually need to show up for my parent right now. No matter what they did or didn't do to me in the past, I am going to show up for them. So I've got to deal with the part of me that just wants to check out and not deal with this. This is an opportunity to reparent that part of you that's showing up. How do you do that? The first thing you do is get curious about it. Notice it without shame. What's the impulse that you're noticing? For example, I can't stop pleasing my mom. I can't say no to her, even when I know it's not logical. I wonder what that's about. Or I am so irritable with my dad. I don't want to be, but I am. I want to get curious about that. That part of me that's just back like a child trying to scurry around to make mom happy. I wonder what that's about. How old is she? What is she afraid would happen if I say to mom, I can't do this today. I'll get back to you tomorrow. What is she afraid would happen if dad was irritated with me? And then just notice, where do you feel that impulse, that urge in your body? Are you hunched over? Are you tense? How old does that part of you feel? Is she 16, afraid of getting in trouble again? Is she a 5-year-old part of you, afraid of losing their love? It is so normal for these young parts of you to show back up in these stressful situations. Get curious about those parts of you. Our dogs love Sundays. I'm not kidding. One of our dogs was the slowest eater on earth for the first several years of her life. It was painful how long it would take her to eat. The minute we introduced her to Sundays, she just laps it up. She loves it. Sundays is healthy dog food that's easy to store and serve. Most foods are one or the other, but Sundays is both. It's fresh dog food made from a short list of human-grade ingredients that contains 90% meat, 10% superfoods, and 0% synthetic nutrients. But unlike other fresh dog food, it doesn't require refrigeration or preparation. It's air-dried, so you simply pour and serve. It's so easy. Get 40% off your first order of Sundays. Go to sundaysfordogs.com/bestofyou or use code bestofyou at checkout. I am so excited to share with you guys an incredible scientific breakthrough to support our long-term health and wellness. C15 is the first essential fatty acid to be discovered in 90 years. And what's amazing is that studies have shown it's 3 times better, broader, and safer than omega-3. Now, Fatty 15 is made with pure C15, and it's revolutionizing how we support our long-term health by repairing and strengthening our cells from the inside out. If you've been feeling sluggish, sleeping poorly, or just noticing that you're aging faster than you'd like, you may actually be low in C15. Fatty 15 is designed to replenish that essential nutrient and improve your metabolic, liver, and heart health while giving you deeper sleep and even healthier hair and skin. Plus, Fatty 15 is vegan, 100% pure, and free of fillers or preservatives, unlike many fish oils that go bad before they even leave the bottle. With Fatty 15, you get a clean, powerful way to restore your long-term health. Fatty 15 is on a mission to replenish your C15 levels and restore your long-term health. You can get an additional 15% off their 90-day subscription starter kit by going to fatty15.com/bestofyou and using code bestofyou at checkout.
This episode is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like you know to check the date of the big game first before you accidentally buy tickets on your 20th wedding anniversary and have to spend the next 20 years of your marriage making up for it. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Northbrook, Illinois.
And then number 2, extend those parts of you compassion. You want to let those parts of you know, I get it. Dad's temper was scary back then. Mom's criticism hurts. It is hard to feel like I can't make them happy. Whatever it is that those parts of you feel, honor the validity of those feelings, and also simultaneously let those parts of you know that you're here now and that you know how to manage yourself and your parents in ways those young parts of you never did. Update them about all the things you've accomplished in your adult life. That you know how to speak up for yourself if someone's criticizing you, that you know how to set healthy boundaries and tell someone, no, I can't help you with that right now. I'll get back to you in a couple of days when I can. Let those parts of you know that there's an adult in the room who can handle this and that they don't have to. And you might ask yourself, what are those parts of me afraid might happen in this moment if I don't get it just right, if I don't make everyone happy, if I can't solve all the problems in front of me, if I can't make all of my family members content at all times? What am I afraid might happen? Am I afraid of losing love? Am I afraid of being a failure? Am I afraid that I'll lose God's love? What am I afraid might happen? And just honor the fears that come up. And then as you're noticing these parts of you that are anxious or scared or stressed out or fearful, what might happen if you invite God to be with those parts of you? What burdens that these parts of you are carrying, maybe from long ago, need to release into the arms of God? Do they need to release any burdens of wanting to be perfect, of wanting to earn love, of wanting to keep the peace at all costs, of feeling responsible for everybody else's problems? And imagine yourself letting go of those burdens and taking a deep breath. And as you work with these young parts of yourself, you are learning to reparent yourself in ways you maybe never have. These parts of you need you to show up for them. They need you to make time for them every single day to ensure that you're not placing burdens on them that were never theirs to bear. You will take care of these other people in your life. You will, but you will care for them so much more wisely, more strategically, more sustainably if you first tend to these tender, vulnerable, young parts who still live inside of you. This work of reparenting yourself is a practice every single day. And I've got some resources for you, some questions that might be helpful for you that we'll post a link to in this episode's show notes, where you can do some work of tending to these young parts of you who show up in the face of overwhelm, especially when you're giving out so much care to others. Number 2, boundaries. As you do that inner work of identifying misplaced burdens that were never yours to bear, you're also going to want to set some external boundaries to help safeguard some spaciousness for yourself. You will not be able to meet all of these needs around you if you don't take some time to renegotiate your external boundaries. Some practical ways to do that. Number 1, I want you to think about making a weekly self-care appointment. That could be with a therapist, it could be with a pastor, it could be with a spiritual director, it could be with a sibling or a good friend. But I want you to set aside some time regularly to check in with someone about your own needs. When you're caring for a lot of other people, it's incredibly important to make sure that you set apart time for someone else to check in on you. Number 2, you might need some sort of daily practice, such as journaling, where you give yourself space to write out all the things you feel. You don't want to lose touch with yourself. And often what I'll say to people is set a timer. Don't overwhelm yourself. 10 minutes every day. 5 minutes every day to just stream of conscious, write down, this is hard, I'm struggling, I'm mad at these people, I hate this, whatever it is that you're feeling, give yourself permission to feel it. And then number 3, make a list of all your commitments, including the caregiving commitments that are in front of you. And then I want you to rank them, and I want you to cut out the commitments that are not essential, especially those things that are not life-giving. Now's the time to cull your schedule. If there are a few things you've just kind of let linger on and you don't really enjoy it, you don't really feel called to it anymore, maybe you've taken on an optional responsibility at work that you could let go of. Maybe you're doing some volunteer work or you're on a committee at church and you feel responsible to it, but honestly, it's hard, it's a drag on your time, and you just don't have the bandwidth for it right now. Now's the time to take that off your plate and to say the hard no's. You've got a lot you need to say yes to in your life right now, so you've got to get extra clear about your no's. And I have a ton of resources about how to figure out your yeses and no's in my book, The Best of You. If you want to go deeper on that right now, it's a super practical resource on boundary setting. Now's the time to cull. If there are relationships that are a drain, now might be the time to say to that person, I care about you and I have so much on my plate that you may not hear from me for a while. And I just want you to know that this is what I've got going on. I may not be available, right? So this is a time with boundary setting to schedule time for yourself intentionally, to make sure you've got some sort of daily practice where you're giving yourself permission to feel what you feel, such as journaling. And number 3, that you are really culling your schedule, that you're taking things off that you don't have the bandwidth for. So you're increasing the amount of time with people and activities that are life-giving for you, and you are decreasing the amount of time with the people and activities that are life-draining for you. And then lastly, this word surrender. God meets us when we are hurting the most. God meets us in our overwhelm. Now listen, we have to do our part. We have to work at our boundaries. We have to work at our inner lives, at reparenting ourselves, of noticing what's going on inside of us. That's our part of the equation. But the third part is God's. And God meets us when we are overwhelmed. God meets us, especially as folks who are giving so much care to others. And that word surrender, it doesn't mean we're giving up. In fact, I believe surrender is the antidote to false guilt. Guilt tells us I'm letting everybody down. But surrender says I am limited, but God is big enough for all of us. Guilt tells us I have to be perfect, but surrender says I'll never be perfect, and God's grace is enough. Guilt tells us I should be doing more, but surrender says I'll give it my best and I'll trust God with the rest. The antidote to guilt is a radical acceptance of our dependence on a good and kind God. It's choosing to bravely work out what we can, what is in our control, and leaving the rest to God. God, I don't want to disappoint this other person. I don't want to make a mistake. I don't want to let anyone down, but I have to be brave. I have to make decisions. I have to live within the limits of my finances, of my time, of my own humanity. There is a profound shift that happens when we surrender, when we glimpse the end of ourselves and we reach the boundaries of our own capacity. A moment of surrender is quite possibly one of the most profound moments we experience this side of heaven. It's not that our challenges magically resolve themselves. It's that when we become aware of our own frailties, of our own finitude, of our own human limitations, we discover that that's where God loves to enter in. It's where we stumble upon a deeper strength. One that doesn't come from inside of us. It's bigger than that. We're doing everything in our power, and yet these problems are just too much for us at times. We've reflected, we've prayed, we've journaled, we've set boundaries, we've done our part, and yet sometimes we just throw ourselves on the arms of grace. And in that moment of surrender, all that mental work, all that anguish, all that stress, all that worry comes grinding to a halt. We stop. We breathe, we release our grip, and in that moment, something miraculous happens. Our loving God, who has been there all along breaks through a little bit. And that divide between where we are and where God is disappears, maybe even just for a moment. Our minds calm. Something inside our body shifts. We take a break. We take a walk. We might call a friend. We might let the tears fall or just laugh out loud at all the absurdity of our lives. And then we get back up, and with God's help, we take it one brave step at a time. If you are feeling overwhelmed by the needs of everyone around you, you're sandwiched between caring for different generations, including your own soul there right in the middle of it all, I want you to remember these 3 words: reparenting, boundaries, and surrender. Reparenting turns pressure and stress into an opportunity to nurture and care for the younger parts of you that still carry wounds from the past. When caregiving triggers those old fears or reactions, it's an invitation to pause and get curious. What is this part of me afraid might happen? And as you show compassion for those younger parts of you and invite God to be near, you'll begin to care for yourself even as you give out care to others. And then boundaries will help you navigate this season with strength and clarity. Setting limits doesn't mean you love others less. It means protecting your capacity so you can give out in a sustainable way. Boundaries will help you avoid burnout and allow you to care for others in legitimate ways without sacrificing your own well-being. And lastly, surrender. No matter how hard we try, we can't fix everything or control the outcomes for other people. Surrender invites us to release what is not ours to control and trust that God is present in the midst of the mess. It's about doing your best and letting go of the rest, knowing that God's grace has no limits. In my experience, God loves to surprise us by showing up in those moments when we feel the most defeated, the most overwhelmed, when we throw ourselves into the arms of His love and His kindness. And He reminds us that we're never actually alone, and He cares so much more than we do about these other people and about the parts of our own souls in need of His care. Thank you for joining me for this week's episode of The Best of You. It would mean so much if you take a moment to subscribe. You can go to Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, or wherever you listen to podcasts and click the plus or follow button. That will ensure you don't miss an episode, and it helps get the word out to others. While you're there, I'd love it if you leave your 5-star review. I look forward to seeing you back here next Thursday. And remember, as you become the best of who you are, you honor God, you heal others, and you stay true to your God-given self.
Hey, I'm Greer, host of the Unfinished Idea podcast, where listeners and I get to journey together to better understand the neurodiverse world. Together with my husband, we have 2 boys and 2 dogs and raising a child with additional needs. Our day-to-day experience isn't being talked about in everyday life, and I see a gap in those leading people who are neurodivergent. Whether you're a parent, a friend, a teacher, or a neighbor, the neurodivergent world is all around us. So this podcast is for you. I have conversations over a cup of tea or coffee, helping to bring awareness about how neurodivergent people experience the world, as well as families who are raising children with different needs. This podcast will share practical help, tips, and the joys, struggles, and differences in being neurodivergent or raising a child who is. Each week, I will spend 30 minutes talking and interviewing others in the neurodiverse space and giving you the opportunity to learn and grow and feel seen and heard by how we interact with each other and the world. Search for The Unfinished Idea in your favorite podcast app and come learn about the neurodivergent world. I'm looking forward to seeing you there.